All right, hello and welcome to Awkward Family Conversations, where we try to help millennials and Gen Z Zoomers like me figure out how to exist in a messy place. I'm here as always with my dad, Rhett, who is not like other dads. And I know this, and I actually learned that in college when I went to college and everyone would put on AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and talk about how they grew up with that. And I was like, I thought everyone grew up with Stevie Wonder. But my dad is a soul and funk kind of guy instead of a dad rock kind of guy.
Yes, I am. I am. Give up the funk.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Ed. I am joined by my younger daughter, Addie. We've established on prior podcasts that Addie loves animals. Big animal woman. But this week, she and her boyfriend had moved in, well, I guess a couple of weeks ago, moved into a new place. And she had a visitor that she was not excited about when I was speaking with her on the phone. She discovered that a lizard had made its way into the house, and I'm dying to know how that adventure ended, if in fact it has.
It was pretty intense. So the lizard was like this big. It was like between 6 to 8 inches. He was a big guy. So I posted on Instagram the call for distress of somebody please come help me. There's a lizard in my house. Unfortunately, my friend Santi responded. So he came over and we dealt with the lizard together, and it was a fiasco because we have baseboard heaters. We don't have central AC or heat. So the little baseboard, it was kind of cold. So the baseboard heater was on, and eventually the lizard climbed up in there because it was nice and warm and toasty, which meant that it became very difficult to get the lizard out. So after some moving furniture around, a wooden spoon and a broom and a mug, and the lizard losing its tail, we finally got him.
Okay.
And we put him outside. And then I had to clean up some lizard blood from the tail incident.
Ouch. Well,
but he's
quite
all
an
right.
adventure.
Yes, I was panicking when he was in the heater because I was like, I don't want to boil a lizard. That sounds really unpleasant. And he was kind of cute. I just was like, can you go outside, please? Can you not live inside of my house? And then after all of this, Eric comes home, and he's a Midwestern boy, but his family goes down to Florida a lot. And he was like, it's just a lizard. Like, why are you freaking out? And I was like, lizards aren't supposed to be in houses. And he's like, that lizards come in. That's what they do. Like, they hang out inside. And I was like, no, they don't. And so now every time I bring up the lizard fiasco, he laughs at me and is like, I can't believe this is such a thing for you. And I'm like, I can't believe you just expect lizards to be in the house.
I mean, we have lizards in California where we live, and they don't come in the house.
They don't come in. They stay outside. Apparently, down in Florida, you've heard of the Florida man. Now get ready for the Florida lizard.
Yeah. Well, I do know in Florida, too, that snakes get in the house, too, which would not be good.
I'm not down with that.
I'm not down with any of that.
No, they can hang out outside. That's fine. I'm cool with lizards outside. Eric was like, you should like the lizard. It's going to eat the bugs. And I was like, can it do that outside?
Yeah.
Alternatively, can it hide in the baseboard heater and never come out?
Maybe.
Like, I'm fine if they just don't show their face. Like, I had a centipede problem at a couple apartments ago, and that was fine. They don't make a mess. They like to hide in dark places, and they eat roaches and spiders. So I was like, go for it, centipedes. But then they'd come out and I'd be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's all over. You're dead now.
Yeah, they're not very good looking.
No, and they're big down here.
Yeah.
Like couple inches, about like pinky width is the average centipede you see down here in the South.
Yeah, and then you got the big roaches too, which I remember from one of our stays.
I still have yet to, there's one right next to me.
There's a roach?
I have a serious roach problem. That has not been an issue. But Eric did inform me after we moved in. He was like, oh, I can tell you this now. Back at my old house, we've had a couple different roach and brown recluse problems over the years. And I was like, and you let me sleep there?
Yeah, the brown recluse is different. The roach is just gross, but the brown recluse, that can be bad. So.
Oh, it's real bad. One time I did too much research on it, and now I'm convinced that they're going to kill me in my sleep. So
yeah.
No, and I've also heard that there's 2 types of houses in Nashville. Those that have a brown recluse infestation and know it, and those that have a brown recluse infestation and don't know it.
Yeah.
And I would like to firmly forever stay in the second camp. I never want to know about that. They can hide in the rafters and eat bugs. I don't care. Do not come out.
Yeah, the good thing about the brown recluse is it in fact is reclusive, so very hard to find them. But if you go up in an attic or under your crawl space or something, you got to be very careful. So
Yep.
Yep.
And don't let a bunch of cardboard pile up too, because they really like cardboard. So if you have like a pile of cardboard in a corner, they're gonna love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That happened to me in my old house, and there was a spider in there, and I killed it and didn't look closely at it because I was like, nope, it's a house spider. That's just what it is. Every spider I've seen in Nashville has been a harmless wolf spider.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough about bugs and reptiles and such. What are we talking about today, Ed?
Today, we are talking about what's the big deal about breaking up and divorce in my freshly moved into home with my boyfriend.
Yes. Well, you're on the one end of the spectrum. I'm on the
Moving
other,
out
actually.
of the home.
Yes. So
Yes.
I am breaking up and divorcing, but we're doing it very amicably. So
it is kind of funny. I'm going to be real. When it says what's the big deal about breaking up and divorce, I will casually mention my parents divorcing at like parties and around my friends, and they will all immediately be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's fine. Like, they're being very cool about it. It's like not a thing, like at all. Like, we're good. So the big deal for me about parents divorcing, at least, is good.
yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, these are. I mean, I don't. On the spectrum, the feedback we're getting from people that do this and deal with people a lot is that we're, approaching this in a very positive way. And so we may, we're not on the normal distribution. We're on one of the tails. You've got usually there's a lot of conflict, and I'm not going to tell tales out of school here. Don and I have decided to be private about this, but. We are not hostile. There's been no single precipitating event. And so we're probably unusual. And so our experience is probably not, you probably can't project that onto most situations.
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
But even having said that, it's still a disruption. One of the things we're talking about this season here is transitions and, moving from one part of life to another in a significant way. And there's no question that breaking up and divorcing, these kind of separations are incredibly disruptive. And some of that disruption is, just kind of logistical, physical. You have to find, new places to live and new ways of organizing your day and navigating your day. And those are common to all the transitions that we've talked about, the moving, the going to new jobs. All of that requires a change just in the day-to-day way you go about things. And that can take a lot of time and energy and mental resources, focus, those kind of things. And that's certainly true in a separation scenario. But on top of that, you got to layer on a lot of emotional disruption as well. And for some, for the marriage that, Don and I have had, this has been a slow process for us. It's one that we're now acknowledging, but we've been working on this for almost a year ourselves formally. And, we've kind of recognized through the years that we probably aren't the best spouses. We're much better as friends. Since we've made the decision to divorce, we're getting along better than we ever did. Expectations are a lot different of friends than they are spouses, and we really couldn't be what we each needed as spouses. But as friends, we're pretty darn good, and that certainly helps us. But in a lot of cases, you've got rejection, betrayal. There's abuse, either physical abuse of a partner or just self-abuse with drugs and alcohol and those kind of things that disrupt the relationship and cause enough pain that people are like, you know what, we're better apart than we are together. And that's essentially what this decision is all about. When you're divorcing or breaking up or ending, separating a relationship, you're just saying we're better off. At least one of the partners is better off away from the relationship than they are in the relationship. And that brings a lot of emotion to the fore. The person that initiates it is, also, just has to deal with failure. The relationship didn't work out. So there's kind of a failure thing there that can be disappointing and upsetting. And certainly the person who is being broken up with, when you have that kind of situation, feels an awful lot of rejection and confusion and upset that way. So these, it's you've kind of got in these separations, these relationship separation situations, you get these, you kind of the standard logistical challenges, and then layer on top of that some really some really heavy potentially emotional things. That's not something that your mother and I are seeing a lot of here. I mean, obviously there's some of that going on, but we've been able to avoid an awful lot of that negativity, those negative emotions. We talk through. One of the things that's been a little bit interesting and somewhat ironic is that we're talking more now about our divorce than we talked when we were married, which is not an uncommon thing. A lot of marriages break down because of communications, and that's probably a large part of where we went sideways in our relationship is that. But we're, the way we're doing it, you've got to engage and you've got to talk about things that are really important, and so far we've managed them reasonably well. We're not through it all, but we're through a lot of it. And so it could still go sideways, I suppose, but I don't think it will. I think that we respect each other and think enough of each other and love each other enough, in this platonic way that we're not going to spoil the waters. Plus we've got 2 daughters and we know we're going to be connected through the rest of our lives together. And we want to make sure that that's a positive experience too. So.
Yeah. For the record, I would like to put this on recording that I am now team Fort Collins.
Are you now?
That's now my top choice.
And why is that?
Well, because Callie and I want to go to Denver, and so
Right.
Mom wants to go to Denver. So then we could still all do like family Christmas and stuff and all be close together, and that would be wonderful.
That's true. Well, we can do that wherever we are. It just requires somebody to come in.
Yeah, the problem is I have like $3 at any given moment. So
well, I mean, if everybody's in Denver, then presumably whoever's not would be the one to come there.
That's fair. But we could see you for like not Christmas too. Like if you're in
True.
Fort Collins, it could be like we don't even have to take a long weekend. We can just go visit.
True. Right. Yeah. No, Fort Collins is about an hour north of Denver. So depending where you are in Denver and where you are in Fort Collins, you could be, an hour and a half away, which is nice. No, Fort Collins is certainly, so I'm, for the record, looking at relocating my, here, and here's kind of the other side of the divorce separation thing, right? I mean, it's tough to go through that, to leave a life, a relationship, an intimate partnership behind. But it does offer opportunity. Every change does create opportunity. And so one of the things that I've always done in my life is write, mainly fiction. And I just have a compulsion to do that. And I majored in I had a double major in college, and one of them was in English composition. And I've always written. It's what I prefer. I'm comfortable doing it. And one of the things I'd like to do is see if I can make that a profession of mine, but if I can support myself in some ways, writing. And what that means, though, is that I currently live in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is a very expensive place to live. And I need to find a place, if I'm going to write, and I'm going to devote a significant part of every day to writing. I'm not expecting that to generate enough money for me to be able to live in a high cost area. So I need to find a low cost area, but I need that low cost area to be someplace that I want to live in. And so I'm looking at college towns. I like the West. So I'm looking in the West, and I'm looking more north than south, although I'm considering Flagstaff and looking to a little bit at
that wanted to try to convince you to move to Nashville. And then I remembered everything that's happening in Nashville. And I was like, don't do that.
Well, Nashville's not a low cost area either. It's not as expensive as the Bay Area, but it's not cheap. And
it's going up a lot too.
Yeah, well, it's a high demand place to live. There's a lot of interesting things going on in Nashville, and that attracts.
I think it's about to start going down pretty hard because our state government has lost its damn mind. But it's we'll see what's happening with that.
Well, but don't forget that half the country actually wants the things that your state government wants too. So
that's true, but a lot of people in Nashville are not the people that the state government is working for right now. So
yeah, the people that make Nashville interesting are the artists. That's the people that make every community interesting. The people who think differently and who create a unique experience for people, and that attracts other people who are interested in, even if they can't create, they can at least appreciate the creation. And that's why you have these creative centers like Los Angeles, New York, Nashville. Which is one of the reasons I'm looking at college towns, is because A, younger vibe, and B, healthcare is typically better in college towns because they're teaching hospitals, right? So universities. So I'm looking at places where there are universities because that brings culture. You bring speakers and other things, and you've got an intellectual community there, which is interesting to me. And then, again, healthcare is typically better. So I'm looking at college towns only, but they need to be affordable. So I'm looking at smaller places. And Fort Collins has got, Colorado State University, and it's a pretty affordable place.
You'd be real close to Hannah, my friend from high school. She still lives out there.
Does she?
Mm-hmm.
She went to Colorado State?
Yep, she went to Colorado State. She's working, I think she's doing something with like chem in a lab. That's just like way, way above my brain level. She explained it and I was like, nope.
Yeah, those science guys, they can be pretty intense. So anyway, this is the flip side of this relationship ending, is that it's allowing me to explore things that I've always been interested in, and because of obligations to the family, and because as a family unit, you've got to make decisions together. Mm-hmm. I just can't unilaterally say, oh, I'm going to start doing this. I mean, I could, but that's not really fair to a relationship. So now that I'm separated and will be on my own, it'll be, it gives me the opportunity to pursue things that I haven't to this point pursued aggressively. I mean, I've written and I found places and times to write, but the issue is just consistency and quality too. I mean, if I really want to bring my A game every day, it's hard to do that when you're pulled, when I've got to work full time, when I've got, raising a family, there's things to do around the house. I mean, all these different commitments that I have make it challenging. So, a break like this does give me different opportunities, to kind of craft a life that I wasn't going to be able to do in a relationship like I had. So, there's a liberating part of this, in addition to kind of the sadness and the sense of loss, as well as just the logistical separation.
That reminded me of when I've gone through, because I've kind of run the gamut of breakups. I've had really bad breakups and I've had really easy breakups and everything in between.
Yeah.
And in the really bad ones, the hardest part that I found is that you're in a lot of pain and you're really emotionally frustrated. And those ones are the ones that I've had like a long-term partner for that end really like rough like that. So that long-term partner is kind of like my best friend at that point, and then they're just suddenly ripped from your life. And I'm like, the person I want to talk to about being in pain, about being sad, is the person I cannot talk to about the stuff that I'm going through. So that's always the hardest part, which I feel like you guys have kind of like averted that by doing the conscious uncoupling thing, where like you're still there for each other as friends this time. And so you're not like, the most painful part of the breakup for me is just like removing someone who's a huge part of my life, like cold turkey. Like it's really hard for me to just like not talk to somebody anymore. I need a slow fizzle, which is kind of why the relationship with Jalen ended the way it did for me, was because it was a slow fizzle.
Yeah.
And then I ended it officially. But the times that it has not been like that is when it's really tough. And then the other thing you reminded me of, slightly less inspirationally, but I'm not a very career motivated person, but I am a very like relationships motivated person, not even like romantic, but friendships too. Mm-hmm. But when I have broken up with people or been broken up with and been really going through it, the way I get myself through it is kind of a similar thing to like thinking about dreams or whatever. I think about how I have the chance now to find that dream person, the one who has all the qualities I liked about my ex, but doesn't have the things. And I'm like, they're out there, and I can like make up this dream person in my head and be like, I'm gonna meet this person. And then by the time I'm like ready to meet someone else, I'm okay to accept flaws. Or in the case of Eric, you meet your dream person and you're like, what? But that's always gotten me through the break, like the really tough breakups, is like, oh, now I can just go back to dreaming about like the romantic hero that I want in my life. So that's interesting. Been, like the liberating part. That's like the hopeful, looking forward to the future thing.
Yeah, that reminds me of a boss that I had who, when we would lose somebody we really liked, somebody who went on to a different job in a different company or whatever and would leave us, we'd be like, ooh, that hurts. And he said, yeah, I used to have a boss that would say, yeah, but now we have the opportunity to hire somebody even better. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially what you just described, right? Is that you have a relationship that's been working on a lot of levels, probably, especially if you're not the person who's initiated the breakup, or even if you are, even if there's an event that just says, okay, we can't be together anymore. Mm-hmm. It can still be, that separation can be really, really challenging. But you're right. Then on the other side of that is the opportunity. And that's, if you want to look at our divorce in a kind way, which I believe to be true, we're giving each other the gift of the freedom to find that partner who could be a better intimate partner than we've been to each other. And that's, kind of back to the, we're much better as friends than we are as spouses. And, we're kind of giving each other a gift, really, to say, we're going to keep our relationship where it's best, kind of hit the sweet spot where we're friends and we're being able to confide in each other as friends do, and we'll be able to do things together as friends do. But the expectations that we have of our intimate partners that we've not been to be able to deliver on for each other, we're giving you the opportunity. I'm giving her, she's giving me the opportunity to find somebody who can. No guarantees that that's going to happen, but at least we know that it's not us. So let's give it to, let's give somebody else let's give you the opportunity to find somebody else who could fill that role for you in the way that you need. And, so in that sense, we're being kind to each other as well.
That's really how, and it was definitely more one-sided in the case of me with Jalen.
You were done.
That was how I felt when I broke up with Jalen, was that neither of us was happy. And I was like, you deserve someone as much as I do who's going to give you what you need. And I'm not that person. Like, I want too much from you and you don't want the things that I can give you. So like, there's definitely someone out there who can. And I like to think that he's at that point now. I don't know. We don't talk. No. But I hope he is at that point now, but he wasn't for a little bit. But I was like, trying to express that, because that was the approach I had. Like, when we broke up, I realized, like, this isn't what I want. And what I want, like, there is someone who can give me what I want.
Right.
I don't know who it is. And then I happened to meet that person.
Yeah. Well, and that's the issue, right? Is he wasn't ready. He didn't see that same way that you saw it. He understood there was conflict and it wasn't perfect, but he was willing to live with that. And that's a hard thing. One of the things you said a little bit ago about, Dawn and I, the slow fizzle versus kind of the quick trigger, whatever. We've been, as I said, this has been a long process coming, and there's been problems in our marriage relationship for a very long time, for a lot of different reasons, and I'm not going to go into them. But your mother has found other people to confide in, and I never did. I always just confided in myself, and so we don't have that adjustment that you talked about, where that key person is ripped from your life. And you've got this open hole where there's nobody there. Both of us found people before we divorced to confide in.
That's what happened with my breakup with Jalen, and why it was so easy for me to move past it, was because I realized, like, it was a slow fizzle. Like, we would go multiple days without talking, but I can't go multiple days without talking to people. So I would talk to Callie, or I would talk to my close friends. So, like, I had this really robust support network that I needed, and my ability to confide in myself as well. But I had everyone I needed, and so when we broke up, I felt a sense of loss in the sense that, like, we were together for 3 years, something ended, but I didn't feel like the best friend is missing. Like, I never had the urge to reach out and talk to him while we were broken up, like I had in the past when we'd broken up quickly. It was always like, I want to talk to Callie. I want to talk to my friend Hayden. Like, I didn't want to call him. Whereas every other time that I broke up, or Jalen broke up with me, the urge the whole time was, I just want to talk to Jalen.
Right. Yeah. And that's essentially where we've gone in our marriage too, is that Dawn has a variety of people that she confides in, even more than she confides in me. And that had happened during our relationship. We just weren't conscious of it, weren't talking about it. So when we started to have the serious discussions about whether we were better off together or better off apart, it became quickly apparent that I don't confide in anybody. I have only myself, and she confides in a lot of people besides me. And we weren't each other's. We weren't.
In my relationship looked like years and moms, is because I feel like it's ending in a similar way because of the similar difference in needs, where he really didn't need me the way I wanted him to. And he didn't rely on me the way that I wanted to rely on him, but because of that, there wasn't that flip.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth in that. I would say, and I'm not going to go into it out of respect for your mother and what we've decided to communicate, but that's not exactly our situation, but it's close, and it's certainly directionally the same. And but the fact of the matter is that we had weaned each other. We had disappointed each other in our own ways. Over time, and we've found other ways to get that solace and support and sounding boards and everything that we each needed. And so when we started examining what we could do for each other and what we had been doing for each other, we realized, yeah, that's not, ours is really more of a platonic, ours is from a constructive standpoint, a platonic relationship works better, because we're just not the partners that we each want from the other. And that's, and it, we care about each other and we respect each other a lot. And we're able to have those kind of conversations now. We weren't always, but and that's been sort of as I talked about at the beginning, kind of the irony here is that our communication here is much more open and honest than it had been in the past. Certainly on my side, oftentimes I was the roadblock to the communication because I am a silent guy and I like to work things through in my own self, and I keep my own counsel. But nevertheless, we're going forward in a kind of with a collaboratively. I mean, we share a lawyer, we share a financial advisor, we share a therapist. It's to help us through this. So we're going through it together, and we're not trying to score points off of each other or get even for slights that are in the past.
You've handled it so well with us too. Like I've talked to both of you frequently about the divorce, and neither of you has tried to get me or Callie on your side or tried to turn it into like it feels like a thing that's happening. And like part of that is because I live in Nashville. Like I know Callie's definitely going through a bit of a more intense thing with it than I am. Yeah. But like for me, it's really just like nothing has really changed about my family dynamic. Like you guys will talk about what's going on with the divorce and where you're at and selling the house and dealing with a financial advisor and stuff, but neither of you ever like complains about the other one or says the other one needs to be doing something better. And that I really do appreciate that. That is noted, and it's nice.
Yeah. Well, and it is consistent with kind of how we do think of each other. I mean, we recognize that, we each have our own gifts and we have our personalities and the way we do things, but it's never been a malicious, and we've hurt each other as people do in relationships through time. And we've been married 32 plus years. And, so there's certainly things in the past that have caused us, friction and strife but I think recognizing that none of that was malicious. That's just, that those things happen because of the people we were and people we are. And it's not it's not a conscious thing that we were trying to hurt other people. We just did it because we were just doing what we do. And
a fun fact is that one of the interns is trying to break into this room right now. She's being very disruptive.
Yeah, you've increased the intern staff to 3 now. We have 3 cats in Addie's house at the moment. So
there are 3 cats. They're still separated because they cannot be trusted. But
over time,
one of them cannot be trusted. My 2 are totally fine with Debbie now, and Debbie is still trying to fight. So
that's who she is.
Yes.
So keep in mind.
Lived with cats.
What's that?
She's never lived with other cats too.
Right.
We expect it's going to take longer. Speaking of.
Roxy. Yeah, the dog is woken up. Somebody's outside moving around. It's also a windy day, so we have.
She's got to let them know. She's the fierce protector of that house.
She's getting old too, and she's hearing things. So sometimes she just barks at phantom noises. We'll be sitting around, and she'll start barking. It's like, what possibly could you have heard? And I understand she's got a higher frequency and a bigger range of things she hears, but obviously something disturbed her. But that's enough. Stop.
There was a stink bug. Well, there's always stink bugs in the house. They've just been around lately. I think they like my plants. But there was one right above the top leaf on the big cat tree yesterday, and Missy was screaming at it, even though it was within arm reach. She was just staring up at it, screaming at it. And I was like, "Can you kill it, please? Can you get it?" And then she got distracted by the window, and then she lay down and took a nap.
As cats do.
Debbie is very effective though. She has hunted and killed at least 1 stink bug. So,
good.
Go Deborah. She definitely could have taken care of the lizard, but I didn't want the lizard to die. I wanted the lizard to go outside. So I did not sick Debbie on it.
Yeah. Whether it had a tail or not.
Yes. I felt bad about that. We didn't need to. It was just like the lizard was too big to comfortably fit under any of the mugs we had. So we used the biggest mug we could find. Then we put it on the lizard, and then he tried to get out, so we moved it, and then we accidentally got his tail. And I was like, "Oh, dang it!"
Well, but he lived. So, and I think, I'm not sure if all lizards can grow tails back, but most can.
I think most lizards can. Yeah. It's not going to have bone. He's just going to regrow the cartilage.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be able to regrow his tail at least a little bit. It takes a while though.
Yeah. But so it goes.
Indeed.
This totally non sequitur, but I heard on the radio yesterday, which totally freaked me out, that there's a rat problem in San Francisco. San Francisco apparently has a huge population of rats relative to other large cities. And I was listening.
Densely populated.
Yeah, but even more so than New York, Chicago. I mean, on a like per square mile. But I heard just one of the most unnerving things I've ever heard was they were talking to some rodent person in San Francisco. You can't. So they're talking about basically distributing birth control for rats.
I love that,
because it's a humane way to control the rat population. But was really unnerving and really freaked me out, because you know how much I hate rats. A male rat and a female rat will live about a year, I guess, once they get to adulthood, and they can produce 15,000 offspring in that 1 year.
Wow,
that's a lot of rats.
Have you heard of king rats?
No, because I try to avoid anything having to do with rats.
I'm not going to ruin your day then. If you're ever feeling particularly masochistic, you can look up king rat.
King rat.
Yeah, but like only if you're feeling really. I love rats. When I'm watching a TV show and there's rats running across something and there's like a shot, Eric can attest to this. I usually go, "Aw," because they're kind of cute.
No, they're not.
I am freaked out and upset by king rat. The concept of king rat is deeply upsetting to me.
So king rat is just a single rat that's big?
In a way.
All right. Because there's a Stephen King story, I think it's part of Night Shift, that this guy somehow, goes down and it's kind of like Harry Potter with the spiders in the whatever one there, where you get the big massive spider and that rules the spider world. But apparently there's a rat that's enormous, can barely move itself, but yes and no is my answer to that. Again, don't look it up. Upsetting. But yeah. Anyway, without making your day worse, that's the furthest we can talk about king rats. Yeah. Well, just knowing that rats can reproduce that much is a freaky thing.
I didn't know they could do that much.
Very prolific, apparently. So
I had to deliver some mice babies once when I was volunteering at a wildlife rescue out here. And by deliver mice babies, I mean stand there and make sure the mom didn't eat the babies.
Right. No, your Aunt Susan used to bring mice, and we had mice and gerbils, and she had chameleon lizards, those kind of things in our house, and they were always getting out. But yeah, if the babies were born during the day, higher likelihood that the mom would eat them.
That's funny.
As opposed to at night. So whenever the mother was delivering, she always was very freaked out and was very upset when the mother actually ate the babies. So. It's
pretty upsetting. We had the one I had to supervise was because she ate the babies last time.
Yeah.
So, but they did that wildlife rescue bred mice because they called it mouse school, which is a misnomer. It was school for the hawks. So they would breed mice, and the like brownish colored ones would, when they reached maturity, go into the hawk cages so the hawks could get used to hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were cute while they lasted though, and they kept some for breeding. So you could bond with those. Those ones had names and you could pet them. They were very cute little baby mice all the time, which was very fun. But probably about 20 enclosures. So cleaning out the mouse room was always pretty rough.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I remember when you worked at the Lindsay Wildlife Experience that you came across a bunch of mice labeled food.
Oh yeah, no, it was that is the thing that people will like try to gross me out. And I'm like, listen, I spent my formative years looking at piles of rat entrails on a cutting board.
Yeah.
It's like, you cannot freak me out with like animal stuff now.
Yeah, that's
human
like you
stuff,
don't.
Though, like when I was a vet tech, I would talk to human nurses, and they would talk about like human people pooping on floors, and I was like, no, that's disgusting.
Yeah, we have a good friend of ours. Well, Dr. Debbie, who's a doctor, and we were in Vegas. In fact, the trip that resulted in your older sister being conceived.
No,
Well, these are awkward family conversations, so we'll talk about that. But anyway, we were there, and Debbie was pregnant. and we were at the, they had just opened up.
Apparently, my mom was about to be.
She might have been pregnant at that point too. Who knows? But we were at the MGM Grand in the Spago restaurant, the Wolfgang Puck. Well, it wasn't Spago, it was the Wolfgang Puck Kitchen or whatever, which is the beginning of the sort of the celebrity chef kitchen, being associated with they'd actually put the chef's name in the restaurant kind of thing. So he was one of the early celebrity chefs, one of the first. And so he had a place at MGM Grand, which had just opened up. And we were eating there for dinner, and we tried to tell gross out stories. Very bad idea with the doctor in the house. Very bad idea.
I get people good now with my vet stories because I have a really high tolerance for animal stuff, but most people don't. So I'll talk about gross things my animals do. Like Claire got stress diarrhea the other day. And there was a series of events that followed that were not fun.
Yeah, well, let me just say that I will say one word, and if you ever talk to Debbie and want to know the story, you can ask her about it. But that one word is puss man.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't like that. No, is that story why mom is so freaked out by pus?
No, but it didn't help. It didn't help. It's a nasty.
Yeah, I bet. Did she even eat after that story?
Well, that was the problem. We were eating dinner and it came up and we were all like done. That was just so gross. It's so nasty.
That's funny.
Like, oh.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah. So anyway, back to
the topic at hand.
Back to separation, divorce, and everything. I don't know what else we can really add to our conversation.
I guess my quick conclusion would be, what's the big deal about breaking up and divorce? Is that like initial shock of losing someone? But every time I've gone through a breakup, something much more beautiful has come out of it. And not necessarily a relationship. I mean, like my relationship with myself or the art that I've been able to create because of it. Stuff like that. And that was a big sign that I was in a good relationship with Eric, because I was just as inspired to create art while we were happy as I was when I was sad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. I mean, it's not always the case. I mean, I guess it depends how strong your sense of loss is. I mean, and a lot of people are blindsided, in a divorce situation where somebody comes to them and they think the marriage or the relationship is fine and is working well, and then are told, no, it's not working for their partner. And that sense of rejection and loss, and, let's be frank. And, there's an awful lot of marriages that end up with, a lot of financial disadvantage for one partner or the other, usually the woman. And, that can be really, really challenging and upsetting too. And that's not the case where we are. But it's something that we should probably acknowledge, that in addition to the disruption that you have just logistically with your life and with the, the emotional displacement that you feel, but there's also financial impacts that can be, could be felt for a very, very long time.
Yeah. And, I imagine your divorce would be much worse. I mean, of course it would be worse if you guys were having big problems during it. But I mean, I just went through a whole ordeal of house hunting and job hunting at the same time, and that nearly broke me. So I can't imagine trying to go through a divorce, house hunting, job hunting, and dealing with how to split up things. The whole divorce thing is pretty intense.
No question about it. And, the part of the logistics things that we talked about that, again, isn't part of our experience, but it's children, right? I mean, if you've got younger school age children or toddlers, small children, there's an awful lot of, helping them with their transition. So even you've got to go through your emotional transition. You've got to go through kind of a logistical transition. You got to go through a financial transition potentially. If you've got kids that depend on you, that are still, kind of in the house and dependent on you, you've got to help them manage all of that for themselves too. And so this is one of life's, I'd say, second biggest transitions in terms of displacement, because it disrupts on a lot of levels. It disrupts on basically almost all levels. The one it doesn't disrupt is actually your living. Because when we talk death, we're going to be talking about the big one, the big transition, that's really so, well, I mean, death is death. It encompasses everything in your life, right? And because it ends everything. divorce doesn't end everything, but it disrupts an awful lot of things for
It
people.
changes the path that you thought you were on for sure. Because, also just nobody goes into a marriage thinking that divorce is going to happen.
Right.
Like when I've entered relationships with people, breaking up is always on the table. But when you're married to someone, I mean, divorce is obviously still on the table, unless you're Catholic. In which case, I was at a Catholic wedding a couple of weeks ago, and God hates divorce.
Yeah.
Just like that's something I learned was God hates it. There are no other things that God could be hating in the world. Divorce.
There's no
bad.
sacrament. Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, a sacrament of marriage. It's sacred. It's not supposed to be disrupted. I get it, but yes.
When you enter into a marriage with someone, you're accepting a slimmer possibility of breaking up than when you're just in a relationship with someone. So not only is it all of those things, it's also the worst case scenario that you didn't think was going to happen.
Right.
When it happens.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, it's tough, no question about it. And again, we could talk about job transitions and moving cities and all those kind of things. But the adding, when you're adding kids, that's super disruptive. But divorce is well, I mean, those things are sort of additive, right? You're pursuing because things are going to get better, and oftentimes in a divorce, you're separating, you're lessen, it's negative, and not everybody's on the same page. In your prior relationship, you talked about Jalen being, he wasn't ready. He didn't believe that the breakup needed to happen.
I think he was. Because he was the reason I was the one who said the words "we need to break up," but he had, right before I said we should break up, he said, "I haven't been happy for 2 years," and I was like, "Cool, same."
Yeah, well, but his remedy for that was probably not breaking up. It was probably renegotiating the terms of your relationship so you'd still stay connected. But
which is what we tried, but I was like, that's just not going to happen.
Well, it didn't work for you, and it has to work. That's the other, marriages, relationships have to work for both people, and if they can't work for one, then default is it needs to end, right?
I mean, there was a little bit of an issue because he was Claire's stepdad. So I had to break up to Claire that stepdad wasn't going to be around anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't think she noticed.
I'm sure the cats were bereft.
I mean, honestly, she adores Eric. So if Eric were to leave, Claire would have a big problem. Yeah.
Well, Claire would have a big problem for a week until she forgot that he was around.
She's really attached to him. Like she will choose to cuddle with him instead of me. She really loves Eric.
Yeah, but I think but I don't know that animals they have to be prompted to remember. I don't think they have memories that they can summon voluntarily. They're conditioned to respond.
I think she would look for him for a while though.
For a while, no question.
The way that Marla did with Callie.
Yeah, no, I think, and with Roxy here, she's your mom's dog. I won't be around as much. When she sees me, she'll remember me and she'll be very positive. But after the first couple of weeks, she's not going to remember. She won't be able to prompt herself to remember me.
I cried about your guys' divorce the day that you told us. And then I was good. I was over it. I was like, cool. Honestly, what do I have to be sad about? And then it occurred to me that Roxy wasn't going to have her ball buddy. And that one hit real hard. That one hurt.
She will, just not frequently.
Yeah, that was the only other time I cried about the divorce. I was like, Roxy's
going to miss me. Yeah. Well, I'll miss being around her a lot too. But again, I'm going to be present. I mean, I'll see her. It just won't be living with her. So
yeah. No, it's also, that is another weird thing is when you go from having pets around to not having pets around.
Well, that's part of the death piece, right? Or in this case, a separation. But, the thing about separation is I'll always say it. We were talking with a realtor here the other night who was here to look at our house. And he was divorced 11 years ago. And he said, they had a puppy. He says when he goes over to pick up his kids and drop them off and see him, everything, the puppy remembers him, comes out, very excited to see him and everything. And it's like, we see each other. It's just not in the same way that we would have if we still lived together. So
makes sense.
Yeah. But there's no question, the divorce and separation, breakups, big life transitions, life transitions for sure.
In almost always.
Yeah, almost
always.
Some
good ways, because I remember one of the things that happened when I broke up with Jalen, because I didn't end up doing it, but I started looking at school in New Zealand, and I started looking at a lot of things that I didn't think were on the table,
right,
for me. And I mean, like, I'm no longer going to school in New Zealand. That's not the plan anymore. Mostly because I don't want to do vet school.
Right.
But it's still definitely like, that was what I carried into my relationship with Eric, was like, hey, I don't want to take anything off the table for either of us. Like, I want both of us to still have every option available to us that we've had. Right. We've carried that with us. Unfortunately, both of our goals align in that way. So,
well, right. And you're going to make decisions, and you're going to create entanglements voluntarily that will take things off the table.
And I know that there are compromises and stuff that's going to happen. Like, one of the bigger things, one of the reasons I left the music industry was because I realized that relationships, romantic and otherwise, are way more important to me than like passion for my career. And I found that I was not satisfied working in audio because it meant that I had to give up a lot of personal relationships because of just the time demands that my career was taking. And so I assessed and was like, that's not worth it. I want to do something else that I like and enjoy, but that still lets me have my life outside too. So it's kind of like little changes like that, that you give up when you're in a relationship, little compromises of like, I want to live, like I had my apartment basically downtown East Nashville. That was great. And it's really hard to afford a 2-bedroom there. So we're a little bit out of the way now, but that's okay because I'm with my partner.
Right. Yeah. But those are the things. You'll create those entanglements, those decisions, those compromises that you have to make because you're making decisions for 2 or more if you have a family, right? I mean,
well, we're making decisions for 5 because we've got 3 children.
Yeah, cats are a little bit different than children, but yes, they're not quite as complicated, and you have a little more flexibility with being able to work around them. But having said that, you do compromise. I mean, anytime you're in a relationship, you compromise in favor of a relationship. And you're right that when you're not in a relationship, and this is what I'm discovering, it is the time to now explore the things that you consciously decided not to pursue because you were deferring, your own desires, dreams, goals, whatever, to the relationship, because it's what economists would call that the marginal propensity, the marginal cost, and the marginal cost of compromising was lower than the benefit, the marginal benefit to the relationship. That the relationship was the benefit to the relationship of deciding to live outside of downtown Nashville was higher than the cost of you not moving to of staying where you of moving. The cost of moving away from your old place was not as high as the benefit of moving away from your old place. And so therefore you moved away from your old place. Doesn't mean that you wouldn't prefer to be in your old place. It just means that given the factors that are
we could just throw on a second bedroom and be perfect.
Yeah, but that's,
such is not the nature of renting.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But there's lots of different ways, things that you could sacrifice otherwise. I mean, you could decide, okay, we want to live in where we were before, which means we need to make more money, which means I need to sacrifice a little bit more. So I need to spend a little bit more time at my job so I can make more money so that we can afford to live there. And you chose not to do that. So there's a lot of choices that you make in support of the relationship that you wouldn't necessarily make if it was just you making those calls. And the thing about being out of a relationship is you get to make your own calls. And choose maybe a different path. And that's kind of where I am. I'm looking at a path that I think will give me more satisfaction, more joy, more sense of accomplishment than I would if I were just doing a finance job living in the Bay Area. So I will leave the Bay Area to be able to afford to be able to do something creative for myself.
I also really, really want you to be the 60-year-old dude with long gray hair at the bike shop. Like, I want you to be the bike dude at Sports Basement, just like writing your books, working on bikes.
Yeah, well, I probably won't be working on bikes, but maybe, who knows? And I won't have long hair for much longer, I think. Well, it's falling in my face, and it's because I'm not going to do the ponytail thing. And so I did promise
growing his hair out, but he loves a good man bun. So
yeah, I'm not a man bun kind of guy, not a ponytail kind of guy. I'm not going to be wearing headbands, hats. I'm not super wild about. So the problem with that is the hair is unfettered, and the hair unfettered is a little bit annoying.
I get that. I definitely get that. I see girls at the gym sometimes with their hair down, and they have like not hair as long as mine, because mine's kind of insane at this point. Like, it goes to the small of my back. But long hair all the way down at the gym. And I'm like, how do you do that? That drives me insane. My hair is almost never down now.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's down when I go to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's, mine is unfettered and it's not super long. I mean, it's not to my shoulders yet on the sides here, but it will be. So anyway, mid-June, after my Earth, Wind and Fire concert with your sister,
Sure.
you may.
Yeah, she was going to come out here to go to a concert with me. And then she was like, I'm so sorry, I can't make it. And I was like, explain. She was like, I'm going to Earth, Wind and Fire with Dad. And I was like, okay, that's the one. Fine.
Yep. Exactly. So anyway, yeah, her idea, actually, it wasn't even mine. I'm not a concert guy by and large, but
you are an Earth, Wind and Fire guy. So
I am an Earth, Wind and Fire guy, getting back to the R&B, soul and funk preferences.
It is funny. Every now and then I'll meet someone else who grew up on the same music I did, and then I'll get to bond with them and be like, nice. Because Eric loves to put on like nostalgic dad rock, and I'm just sitting there like,
doesn't mean anything.
I've never heard this song. And he'll like casually reference like guitarists or drummers of like really famous bands. And I'm like, I got nothing.
Yep.
But I can tell you about the Bee Gees.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the Bee Gees weren't a band of mine. We just happen to know.
That's
I'm not
true.
a really big Bee Gees fan, but I do know more about them than I probably should. So. Very good. Well, I think we put this topic to bed.
I think we've covered it. Yeah.
What are we covering next week?
Well, next week is going to be what's the big deal about retiring, which, let me tell you, I cannot wait.
Well, yeah. The thing
Got my
about
401k and can't wait to crack into that thing.
Yeah, well, as I can tell you a little bit because of the divorce thing, it does affect the retirement thing. But yeah, that'll be an interesting conversation as well, because of course I'm not quite there yet myself, but maybe sort of I am.
You almost did it. You flirted with the idea.
Well,
and
the
then you ran
retirement
an
was,
Ironman and went back to work.
Well, the retirement was, this entrepreneur idea around shared workspace, which turned out to be a good idea at a very bad time. And so,
yeah, that was rough. You guys got dealt a bad hand.
Yeah, our timing could have been a little bit better for that, for sure. But anyway, that's certainly affected it. So the retirement piece will be an interesting one for sure. So I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, same.
Cool. So take us home then.
Well, do we have any follow-up items?
Well, there was no swearing today, which was always good. And do we have to research anything? Maybe King Rat. I might, if I'm feeling brave, have to look at King Rat.
If you want to ruin your day, it's like when I go on like r/no sleep, when I'm like, I would like to have nightmares tonight for whatever reason, then look up King Rat. But
okay.
Like it's messed up.
All right. I'm not interested. Well, all right. So that would be the only homework, but no. Okay. Sounds good.
Your homework is not to do that to yourself.
Fair.
Because there's a Modest Mouse song called King Rat. And the only reason I know about it is because it's a good song. And Eric goes, oh, do you know what that is? And I was like, no. And he explained it. And I was like, I wish I didn't.
And you like animals.
And I like animals.
Yeah.
But our topic for next week is retiring. But in the meantime, you can find us on awkwardfamilyconversations.com, on Facebook at Awkward Family Conversations, on Twitter at Awkward Family C1, because Awkward Family Conversations was taken.
Truncated. No,
Who does that?
It's truncated.
Who needs that? Nobody needs that. Nobody needs that handle except for us. Anyway, you can also find us on YouTube, which is where we are caught up on account of me moving and just having located my external storage. So 3 audio files coming to you this week.
That's homework for us.
Yep, for me specifically.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you can find our older episodes on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. If you're a YouTube watcher and your Spotify friends are just distraught, let them know they're going to get it this week. But in the meantime, keep asking us questions and giving us suggestions. We are more than halfway through. We are 80% of the way through season 4. So we need our next season.
We need topics, right? So
we
please.
need topics.
Yeah.
Please don't ask about work stuff. I hate talking about work stuff.
We've well, I don't know, exhausted. There is always topics to talk about, but yeah, we've talked about.
We've exhausted my work topic supply.
We've talked about work quite a bit, and I think there's some good stuff in there. But
there's plenty of good stuff in there. That first season was what led me to quitting my job.
There you go. So Awkward Family Conversations has helped other people, have helped people make career choices. So very good.
Indeed.
Excellent.
Very influential.
All right. Well, next week we'll talk about retirement. In the meantime, I love you, Ed, and I will, I'm sure, talk to you very soon.
Yeah, love you too, Dad.
All right. Bye.